Going to shift over to the nature and science questions.
Yes.
What existed before the Big Bang and what happened before the Big Bang?
Other universes. Each universe is the product of a universe before it. A universe may expand, a universe may collapse. The collapse can create another universe in endless cycles outward to infinity.
So, does that mean it was a collapse from a different universe that created ours?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
One
Scientifically
multiverse
speaking,
collapses into another multiverse.
well, um, scientifically speaking, how does a particle know it is being observed?
It doesn't know it in the sense that you know somebody is watching you. Because remember, the particle is a product of the projection of your consciousness. So you know you are observing it. And therefore, the particle takes its knowingness from you being the one that knows you're observing it. Because it's a projection of your consciousness, a reflection of your consciousness as you observe it. It doesn't know it independently.
This person says, I'm going on an Alaskan cruise next summer. I live far away from the ocean, and I'm excited to feel close to dolphins and whales. How can I best connect with them at that time?
Send them images of peaceful interaction with them, send them unconditional love, open up to receiving impressions, especially in your dream state, while you are closer among them. See what you receive. Respond telepathically to it in your imagination. It can increase, it can expand, it can accelerate. Visualize them surrounding you. Visualize yourself communicating with them.
I have heard that the Earth's magnetosphere has deteriorated so severely that no spacecraft has been able to enter it for more than 2 years. Is there any truth to this?
No, there has been shifting and deterioration. It does not in any way, shape, or form prevent spacecraft from entering your domain. Your world is full of portals. It's easy to enter your domain through these portals, regardless of what's going on with the magnetic shield around your planet.
Have you personally met the entity known as Jesus Christ or Yeshua ben Joseph? If so, what was your experience like? What role does he play on Earth, and what role will he play in our future, and including the distant future?
As already mentioned some time ago, we interact with the collective consciousness of your world, which you can refer to as either the Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature, the Krishna spirit, or by many other terminologies. It is an interaction not so much exactly with the personality you understand as Yeshua, but with the greater being of which Yeshua is a part, because we require permission to interact with your collective consciousness. So we do not intervene in your society in a way that does not in any way, shape, or form violate your free will choices of what direction you are evolving into. So we interact with it all the time, and it is no different for us to interact with the collective consciousness of your planet, represented by the idea for some of Yeshua or Christ consciousness, than it is for us to interact with our own collective consciousness, which is referred to as Shah.
Can you tell us more about Shah?
It is the representation of our collective consciousness of the Sasani people, that which we had described as the awakening over a 3-day period that allowed us to all become telepathic with one another.
So does that mean that Yeshua is unique to Earth?
Yes, there are similarities to different collectives that exist in other civilizations, but the particular personalization you know as Yeshua is unique to Earth.
You've mentioned that in addition to your civilization, there are six other hybrid races containing human DNA, with Earth becoming one of them.
Earth is becoming the sixth. There are five other hybrid races. If you want to include the hybrid children, you could say that is also a sixth. But there are five basic hybrid races, and Earth is becoming the sixth hybrid race. That is what will be helped by the Shalanaya, by the hybrid children, in mixing with humanity to become the sixth hybrid race.
Ah. This person is asking, was the human DNA mixed with ET DNA in the far past more than once? So we know it was created to create us, mixed to create us, but were there any other attempts of mixing the DNA?
Yes, the creation of the hybrid children involved great mixing of genetic material by the Greys. It is an experiment that lasts a long time. It is utilizing many different genetic strains for optimization of the hybrid children, and therefore, those that are part of the hybridization program have been, in a sense, genetically mixed ever since the hybridization agenda began in your timeline.
Was that about 6,000 years ago?
Approximately, though that is a very generalized timeline.
Talking about timelines, if our world is splitting into two, and the people in the quote unquote other world will eventually disappear from our reality, does that mean the world's population will be cut in half? Will there be a mass die off or exodus event?
Not necessarily, though some of that may occur. But the idea is that the worlds that you will shift to will have their own populations as well, representative of souls that have chosen to be a part of that reality. Now, it may not be the same level of population that you experience right now, but it doesn't mean that the population will be cut in half, because there are many different souls that will choose to have an incarnation in those versions of Earth that you will be shifting to, some of which may not be incarnated now.
And will the babies being born now and the children, uh, will they be progressing to the positive Earth, or is it, or do we not know?
Most of them will be, because that is one of the reasons why many of them are choosing to be born at this time. And again, remembering that they are a new species that will not forget so much who they are, the vast majority of them will be part of the idea of open contact. There may be exceptions to this depending upon the life path that certain souls have chosen, and some of them may choose to go in directions where contact doesn't occur. But the vast majority of those being born today on your timeline have chosen this timeline specifically because of the experience of open contact that they will be of assistance in bringing about.
Is having contact with a deceased person the same as having contact with an AT? You once mentioned that on your planet you are in connection with the deceased ones from your civilization. How is this contact possible? Why can't we see with our eyes our deceased ones and ETs? Are there some techniques you can share?
As we have often said, following the formula, especially acting on your passion, will raise your vibration. Raising your vibration will make you a better receiver, a better antenna to receive higher frequency perception, which means your senses will become sharper to higher frequencies, which will ultimately allow you to actually physically perceive spirits and other things that are beyond the range of your senses today. So, yes, this will be a natural evolution for humanity to be able to perceive these things in the same way that our civilization does at this point. There is a degree of difference between perceiving a spirit and perceiving an extraterrestrial, even though they may share similar frequencies. But what makes them an extraterrestrial as opposed to what makes them a spirit is in and of itself a degree of difference in terms of the expression of that vibration, the expression of that entity. But it's really kind of similar to the idea of saying red light and blue light are both electromagnetic energy, but there is a difference in how you perceive them because of their frequency. So even though there is a degree to which they are very similar, a plane on which they are almost identical as the same kind of energy, the difference in their frequency makes the experience of them feel different to you. And that's the difference between higher frequency ETs and spirit beings, even though they do share a common fundamental frequency that allows them to exhibit traits that are similar.
This is a question about the actor and comedian Robin Williams. He was diagnosed with a rare brain disease called Lewy body dementia. Did his constant use of his brain and multi-access energetically wear out his brain? Or was he predisposed to this rare condition genetically?
It did not wear out his brain. This is part of the choice his spirit made for his soul's life path, to experience this in this way. We are not allowed to go into detail because of the survivors of the family of that particular individual. But this is part of his soul's life path that he chose before he was born. And it is something that aids and assists the different family members that remain to investigate and explore for their own soul's life paths as well.
There is an infinite number of parallel realities. Does this mean you are speaking to humankind? Does this mean that you are speaking to humankind in many parallel realities too? And that some of those realities are closer to open contact or are already there?
Yes, other versions of me, I suppose you could say, are speaking to other civilizations, other versions of you in many other parallel realities simultaneously. I am generally aware of this, even though I don't have to be specifically aware of what's going on in each of those parallel realities, unless for some reason it is important for my life path to specifically know what those communications are all about. I do draw from them in general to aid and assist in each timeline that experiences open contact, to give a vibration off that is more conducive to each reality being more capable of choosing the direction of open contact, vibrationally speaking. So I use the connections in all those parallel realities to increase the probability and likelihood for other parallel realities who have chosen a higher probability of open contact to move it in its momentum in that direction.
What percentage of those realities have done open contact?
It is not exactly accurate to give you a percentage of something that is infinite.
Okay.
The idea of the experiences of open contact in different realities take many different forms and are not limited to the idea just of what you understand your Earth to be. There are many other versions of Earth as well that are totally dissimilar from what you understand your experience of Earth to be. So if I limit the answer to those versions of Earth that you would recognize as versions of Earth, then I could say that about 25 to 30% of those versions, those limited versions of Earth that you would recognize as versions of Earth, are experiencing open contact with respect to our involvement as opposed to other extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional involvement. So there are limitations within limitations that are specific, and compartmentalizations within compartmentalizations that are specific to certain kinds of open contact that are experienced by certain versions of Earth that you would recognize as being somewhat familiar, whereas there are many thousands of other versions that you wouldn't recognize as familiar at all.
Well, that sounds very promising and exciting.
All right.
Uh, you told a person that was connecting with a ship at night that those are not the ones you want to draw to you, that it is not safe. You also stated that we are in a bubble of protection on Earth at this time, and we can't be affected by negative beings. Does this mean we are protected but can choose to draw negative entities to us if we really want to?
Yes, you can do that. But what we meant by telling that person what we told them is that the energy was simply not right for them at this moment. They wouldn't have been able to handle it. It was not meant that they were attracting a negative being. It simply meant that they were not ready to handle the frequency, and it would have caused them to go into fear survival mode to have those interactions. We were not implying that those were negative beings.
How do the souls in this physical Earth reality who have attained the highest level of soul alignment, often referred to as masters, differ, if at all, from you and your people with regards to spiritual and soul alignment?
Well, again, as we gave the explanation before, they really only differ in the specific way in which they present themselves that is relevant for Earth's societies, as opposed to the way we present ourselves for our own societies. So there is a fundamental vibration that is similar, but the idea of the way it's expressed, of course, will be relevant for the societies with whom they interact more directly.
Do we experience ourselves as having a personality and things like thoughts and feelings, etc., on a soul and oversoul level? If so, how does that work? And generally, how is the experience of being on the soul or oversoul level different from our experience of having a human personality and being in physical reality?
You will not exactly have the personality, or let us put it this way, what you experience as the human personality will not be dominant on the soul level. It will be a part of you in much the same way, and we have used this analogy before, that your childhood personality is not dominant in you as an adult, but it's still a part of you. So you will recognize it as part of you as a soul, and the oversoul will recognize the individual soul as part of it, again, in much the same kind of an analogy, but it will not be the dominant part of it. It will not be a personality dominance as such. The difference will be more of a knowingness rather than a belief system that generates the personality. So you will simply know who you are, you will know what you need to know, and you will know what the connections you are creating will be all about. You will experience them in a very different way. It'll be more an experience, direct knowingness, rather than the removal that you experience through the idea of a personality that seems more separated from source than the soul or the oversoul would experience. It is a more multidimensional experience, a more multi-connected experience. You see yourself from a multitude of different perspectives simultaneously than you experience as a physical being.
And on that note, is the life review experienced from the perspective of the personality self, the soul, or the oversoul?
It is experienced from both, in the sense that the soul experiences it more objectively, but experiences the idea of what the personality experienced or would experience if it still existed, because that gives context to the idea of what the personality's effect was on other personalities during the physical life experience. But the soul experiences all of that more objectively as a lesson plan, rather than experiencing it directly in the way the personality of a physical being would.
When a person is channeling a spirit or ET, is there always a version of the channeler's higher self coming through?
The higher self is always involved, in a sense, as a facilitator for the connections that a being may make to other beings. Yes, the higher mind is always the go-between because that's your soul. And your soul, in its life path choices, has to be engaged and involved in any of those choices to connect to other beings. So the higher mind, which is synonymous with your soul, is always involved in the process.
This person says, I recently received your gifts, the contact crystal and crystal skull, and carry them with me all the time. Last week, I dreamt of a large black pyramid with sharp edges illuminated by white light floating in the sky. Could you please help me understand its meaning?
This is a higher dimensional version of what we have referred to as our phone number. The black equilateral triangle backlit against a black background by deep blue light. What you have done is dimensionalized it on a higher level. You now see it as an actual pyramid or tetrahedron that is backed by the white light of source, which is representative of our collective consciousness on a higher level. So you were tapping into our frequency on a higher level in a more multidimensional way.